In Jamaica, the government remains fervent in its position that the country should adopt the Caribbean Court of Justice, CCJ, as its final appeal court. Justice Minister Senator Mark Golding says it is high time that Jamaica becomes fully independent. He's also calling on the opposition to lend its support to what he deems a very historic achievement. It has been a controversial debate. Should Jamaica sever ties from the UK Privy Council and accede to the Caribbean Court of Justice, CCJ, as its final appellate court? Some 53 years after saying goodbye to Her Majesty and gaining its political independence in 1962, Jamaicans still rely on the jurisprudence of England, and today lawmakers remain divided on the issue. However, there is a push by the government to follow in the footsteps of some of their regional counterparts like Belize, Barbados, Guyana, and Dominica, who have pledged their allegiance to the CCJ. Jamaica's Justice Minister Senator Mark Golding says Jamaica has been dragging its feet on a very critical decision.
Canada, Australia, New Zealand, all of the African countries that were formerly British colonies, the 4 countries of the Indian subcontinent, and 3 of our Caribbean neighbors, including ultra-conservative Barbados, have all affirmed their self-belief and repatriated their judicial sovereignty. Indeed, 2 other Caribbean states, Dominica and Antigua, have recently decided to do the same. What about Jamaica?
The government, however, needs the support of the opposition to make this historic step, and that support has not been forthcoming. In fact, the opposition did not support the 3 critical bills needed to establish the CCJ as the final appellate court when they were up for debate in the lower house earlier this year. But the Portia Simpson Miller administration managed to pass the bills with its 2/3 majority on May 12. It will not be that easy in the upper house.
Unfortunately, the opposition did not support the bills in the lower house. But the upper house, the Senate, will start debating the 3 bills in October. And we remain hopeful that the opposition will keep its position under review and will not prevent Jamaica from achieving this significant step forward when it comes to the vote in the Senate.
The opposition is championing for Jamaica's own final court, but Senator Golding says that's counterproductive. He says that it would be quite expensive and the country is already cash-strapped.
It would indeed be misguided and I think shambolic to try to set up a new homegrown organ as our highest court with no substantial, very substantial, incremental budgetary support available to do so. In contrast, ladies and gentlemen, the Caribbean Court of Justice is already fully funded. Loans were borrowed at the outset of the court by all the member states of CARICOM, and those loans were paid into a professionally managed trust fund, and that trust fund supports the court's operating costs and capital expenditures. Jamaica has already repaid its share of those loans, so the CCJ has already been fully paid for.
In defending the CCJ, the Justice Minister says the court comprises some of the most eminent jurists from the region and the world. He argues that it's shielded from political interference and is significantly more accessible. For example, the regional court traveled to Jamaica as well as Barbados while it heard the landmark case brought by Jamaican Shanique Murray against Barbados.
The Privy Council is fundamentally inaccessible to the vast majority of our people. Litigants and the Jamaican Council need visas to travel to that court. And those visas are not available as of right. Many people are refused visas who apply for them. The cost of retaining lawyers in the UK to fight these appeals are way beyond the means of most Jamaicans. On the other hand, the CCJ has invested in modern audiovisual technology, and its procedures encourage the use of ICT so that matters before the court can often be dealt with without requiring the litigants or their lawyers to travel at all.
Meanwhile, Senator Golding says members of the UK Privy Council are in agreement for the Caribbean to support the CCJ.
The Privy Council is a colonial institution. Its existence depends on the willingness of the UK government and Parliament to continue to make it available to us. There have been calls from some of the leading UK judges who sit on the Privy Council, whose main responsibility is as their local Supreme Court, for Caribbean countries to use the CCJ and free up their judicial time to deal with their cases from their home jurisdiction. It's frankly embarrassing for us to be forcing ourselves on them. And it's time for us, I think, to take the hint and move on.
Golding says the opposition demands for a referendum to be held before consenting to the CCJ is not required by the Constitution. The Justice Minister says the process is quite expensive and would cost in excess of $500 million.
A referendum is fundamentally a political process. Political parties inevitably seek to use referenda for political advantage. It is highly undesirable to subject a decision concerning the highest level of our judiciary, a most critical and sensitive institution that is always to be shielded from the vagaries of politics, to the excesses of political rhetoric on campaign platforms. Over 30 countries, formerly in the British Empire, have moved away from the Privy Council, and I've listed some of them already. None of them have put that issue to a referendum. Only one country has attempted to do so, which was St. Vincent, because their constitution specifically required that. And the experience of that referendum supports our worst fears about that process. It became highly politicized, polluted by all sorts of extraneous issues that had nothing to do with the court, and as an indication of the will of the people on the issue at hand, it served no useful purpose.